Can you hear that? It's the sound of the second half of the Vitality Netball Superleague season ramping into gear. Fear not, we've got you covered on Off the Court, your regular guide to all things Netball Superleague. I'm Caroline Barker, alongside the coach tasked with leading Scotland to the promised land with more Superleague medals than responses to her super shot views. It's Tamsin Greenway. Hey, we've got a mate of yours coming on in a bit. Your coaching partner, Sara Francis-Bayman, is on. So we'll get into the super shot. Don't waste it yet. Don't waste it yet. Also coming up, we're going down under, I mentioned with Sara, that's our analysis for the big game of the week. We're also with the coach who's pulled off arguably one of the signings of the season, Mikki Austin. She's on to talk Proscovia peace and much more with Storm. I say arguably one of the signings of the season because we've only gone and just had perhaps a surprise signing this week. Temalisi Fakahokotau to Mavericks. This is to replace Trinidadian international Jamila McCarthy, who couldn't play for the rest of the season. She's in the country, Tamsin. We don't know about her fitness. She was taking this season out so much in this story. What do you think is the aim behind it? We could say it's a last gasp bid for the Commonwealth Games, but she need an exemption to players. New Zealand only take those playing in the league, don't they? So what's the gains, the wins out of Temalisi coming over?
Well, you know what? It was a big shock to me. I didn't think Mavericks necessarily needed to replace McCarthy. Their defense end is pretty solid. Consistently, they're playing well. So I was shocked. However, getting anybody of that kind of caliber into our league is always a gain. You know, what she brings, an excitement in terms of the announcement, but also what she'll bring on court. And then more than that, you know, the stuff she'll bring off the court, the environment, pieces that she'll bring that she comes back from New Zealand are fantastic. But yeah, I must admit, I was a bit like, wow, okay, did not see that coming. Usually I have an ear to the ground. However, for her, you know, the Fern squad is still wide open. Whether this is that last gasp and whether she will get an opportunity, who knows? I think for me, she's always been that player that's been there and thereabouts, the one that we've all been waiting for it just to kick and happen, and she becomes that starting defensive player for the Fern. So what better way? We've seen players do it before, come over here, absolutely reign supreme and go back and then smash it for their countries. And she may be another one of those to add to the list.
I think timing-wise, it would probably be a little off-kilter. May still work. She'd need then a few games at the end of the season in New Zealand. But maybe it's a look to the World Cup as well. Whatever, it was surprising. It raised eyebrows and it just shows the level of excitement in our league. Right, back to round 10 then. We saw COVID take effect last week, the likes of Fran Williams and Ellen Cardwell missing games. Whole matches postponed this week. Bath Mavericks off, Sirens Stars. Clearly, all the best to everyone that's picked up COVID, but it did disrupt things this time around with a couple of the games go. But what a few results we saw. Pulse continued to motor. A huge first and third quarter score, saw them win at Leeds. We're going to analyse Fumi Fodoju later in the show for everyone that's been asking us to. She just gets more and more ridiculous. Dragons had that paper-thin defeat to Storm. I wonder if Mickey's still sweating over that. We'll see in a bit. And here is what the table then looks like. Could have been a few games of the weekend then, but you're going for the clash of the undefeated, or Thundefeated, as has caught on for Manchester Thunder. That's what their social calls them. They beat Loughborough Lightning 66-61. This one was live on Sky. What was the turning point? What changed for you?
Well, you know what? It's easy just to say that the first quarter was the quarter. Thunder won it 19-13. Loughborough slow starting, but it just wasn't like that. The story for me really came in the third quarter, which we're going to take a look at in just a second. But I think both teams will be learning a huge amount from what happened in this game. And Loughborough were never out of it. They really clawed back that lead. They kept the pressure onto Thunder. Thunder forced into lots of changes, so effective with the amount of depth they had in the squad, and Thunder had done their homework. I think defensively for me, Loughborough at the moment just take a while to switch on to win balls, and it was a bit like a rocket in the second half. They came out in that third quarter, winning ball. Beth Cobden, Panagari, Fran Williams looked like different players, and Alice Harvey really adjusting to what information she'd be told. So it was a real coaching masterclass on both sides. This is what I want to pick up in the third quarter, which is why I think Loughborough didn't quite get over the line and why Thunder are so good. So we're going to take this centre pass. This is early on. Look at the pressure from Williams, Cobden, Panagari out the front that forces that long ball into Mvula. Alice Harvey finally coming out with some ball by coming off the body. That was the start that happened. Ellie Cardwell then going back into goal shooter. But this is where Loughborough faltered. Look at this. This is a penalty off the centre pass. This is give me the ball back and put a ball in. But look at that cheap shot there from Ella Clark. No need to put it in over the top to Chollet. Just take your time. Look at this, really similar from Loughborough. Hannah Joseph on it, steps onto 1 foot. Nobody coming forward, but she had backup ball and just aimlessly, and that's another unforced error for me, straight off the sideline. And this finally from Loughborough, they get the ball again in the third quarter. Bearing in mind they clawed this back to a goal-for-goal game. This is a give and go again. Give this ball back to Panagari, but it's so casual with the feed into Chollock, and you see Clark's body language on that. I could have picked 3 or 4 more clips that Loughborough made in that third quarter. And for me, that is such a lack of composure under pressure. The positives from that is that they go away and go, basics, you don't step on 1 foot. You don't throw a ball into Mary Chollet with a 2-on-1 when you can shoot. You offload it around the edge. You work your space in again. So there are lots of things that they can pick up. And honestly, if they'd kept that composure in that third quarter, they would have kept that momentum going. I think it would have been a very different outcome. But it's just where they're at the moment. Slow to start in defence, a little bit of lack of composure in attack, both easily fixable, and a different team you will see from Loughborough Lightning heading through. As for Thunder, just a different class at the moment. They do not falter under pressure. I love that. It's that northern grit mentality, that Tracy Neville, Karen Gregg. Come on, guys, come at us. We don't care, because you come at us, I'm going to put another combination on. Oh, and then I'm going to go again. And then I'm going to win this ball. And then I'm going to take it down there. They were good. They are really good. They have thrown the gauntlet out there. That is the team to beat. That is who everybody wants to beat. And they will also continue to improve with those lineups.
Let's get another view on the game from Super League winning coach of Lightning last season, currently residing in Australia, Sara Francis-Bayman. We could talk about the game, Sara, or what we could do is talk about the fact that Tamsin wants the super shot to enhance the game. Tell me how that would have improved a brilliant game of netball that we saw between Lightning and Thunder.
It would not have improved a brilliant game of netball, and it rarely improves any game of netball, if we're being honest. It results in lots of missed shots, lots of air balls, lots of back lines, lots of scrappy play, and once in a blue moon it makes a difference to the result. So not a fan of the super shot. I actually thought the Thunder Lightning game had enough about it to keep everyone entertained, and really Thunder didn't deserve to lose that game. So if Lightning had banged in a few super shots, I don't think it would have been a fair reflection of the 60 minutes, to be honest.
Yes, Sara Francis-Bayman, she knows what she's talking about. Tamsin, I'll let you give your right of reply right at the end of the show, but you want to talk about the game?
Yeah, I do. We're not even going to go there, Sars. We'll do this in Scotland camp next time I see you. Anyway, I just want to talk. I just want to talk about the sort of hype around this game before it happened. You know, both teams went into it undefeated. We've both been there. We've both been through seasons where, you know, we've won every single game going into finals, and we've both been there where we've lost some and come out of it okay. So I want to know from your coaching point of view, like, can losing at this stage be a massive positive?
Yeah, undoubtedly. And I think looking at the game on Monday, I actually think both teams will come out of that relatively happy. You know, Thunder have got 100% record intact. I think Loughborough will feel that they had enough possession and they won enough ball to win the game. And like you say, I think losing at this point of the season, it's almost like a pressure release on teams at times. Like Thunder will now, the pressure starts to build and build and build the longer you go undefeated. And I'm trying to remember when the last undefeated season was, and I think it might have been about 2008 or something like that. So it's a long time ago because it's a lot of pressure to deal with. So I think, like I said, both teams will probably be relatively happy with that, and I think both teams know that there's bigger games to come between those sides as well.
Well, it's interesting as well how both teams handled it through the game. So we chatted at half-time in analysis about Alice Harvey in particular. And at that point, Umvula was kind of owning that circle. And there was a choice of, do you bring Vimbella on or do you leave Harvey out there to work it out? Loughborough went with leaving her out there. She absolutely nailed it, got Umvula dragged, and then Cardwell came on. So you look at how Loughborough handled it. You look at Thunder, and they just changed when they needed to. Cardwell came on. She went from goal attack to shooter. We saw Roebuck enter the game, Pearson on and off, O'Hanlon. So my question to you again, what is your thoughts on changes? Is it better to leave a player out there to learn for next time, or is it impact changes all the way?
I think with the Alice Harvey situation, I think I would have probably left her out there, because you're going to need her to play well against Joyce and Bula in games to come. So, taking her off at half time, actually, what do you gain from that? Give her some information, and then you saw what she can do with it. I do think Thunder are being very, very clever this season with how much game time they're giving the whole squad. So I think we saw last season with, Lightning's run, and the other teams probably didn't use their bench as much. And come finals time, especially when you're getting a few injuries, you're getting a few people out with COVID, you need a squad of 12, 14 plus this year. And I think Thunder have done a really good job of getting people experience in big games early doors in this season. And I think that will see them well throughout the latter part of this season for sure.
That's Lightning Thunder done. We've got to remind people that you lost both regular seasons against Thunder and then went on to win a certain title. So you're right, it can change. Quick word then on all that's happening in Super Netball Suncorp. You're out there watching Stacey, your other half. A record win for West Coast Fever. How did she do? Analyse her for us.
She came on well. She came on at half time. They were already well up, and she looked like she had lots of energy about her. A few too many energy drinks on the bench, and she was up and about and into it. But Fever had a storming start to the season, and they'll be very, very pleased with that. But yes, it's nice to see Stacey play live.
Please tell me it's like Gogglebox. You come home, you set up the analysis, you've got one of Tamsin's tactic boards, and you go through it all.
No, and I definitely don't give my opinion unless I'm asked for it. So and you need to be very careful when the question of what did you think comes up, and it's like, ooh, okay. So you just like tiptoe around some general statements until it's like, well, what did you think about me? And then you can get into it. You don't don't ask, don't tell.
You don't tiptoe around anything, so I can't believe that. Sara, as always, an absolute pleasure. Enjoy it, and we'll catch up with you throughout the season. Until next time. Up next, though, on Off the Court, we can go in depth on Fumi Fadoju as Pulse racked up another win, this time over Leeds Rhinos. This is Off the Court, your regular look at all things Vitality Netball Superleague. And it seems like nearly every week we talk about Fumi Fadoju. I'm not complaining, rightly so. The young Pulse and Rose's defender. Her Pulse side then with that 58-44 win at Leeds Rhinos. Kat, one of many who got in touch using the hashtag Off the Court, asking you to analyse the Pulse defence and in particular Fumi. Are you ready for the most enjoyable few minutes of your life?
Well, look, firstly, it is. I laughed about it on Sky this week about, is it getting boring speaking about Fumi? We just expect her. She's sitting top in turnovers, top in deflections, second in intercepts in the stats table. She is incredible. In this game alone, 5 intercepts, 7 deflections, 6 turnovers. Like, it is just endless at the minute, the amount of balls she's winning. However, good defensive players work best in good defensive units. And I think there's been a lot of chat about Fumi because she gets the exciting ball, but we have to take note of the work rate of Lindsay Keeble behind her, and in particular Zara Everett out of wing defence, who is sitting 4th in the deflections, the only mid-quarter in that group. The rest are circle defence. Don't underestimate what she's doing and why she got that call up into the quad series sort of long squad when Joe Hart didn't come over. So we're going to take a look at this unit and be prepared to keep your eye on some things. You might need to watch it a couple of times through, but I'm going to play this through. This centre pass, look at Zara Everett and how tight she is in comparison to Fumi, who will sit off a little bit more. Keep your eye on Zara Everett running around the circle, getting this ball. I mean, she should have pulled that in. But her range, her hassle, she's annoying but effective. It's incredible. Look at this. Fumi leaves her player and relies on her elevation to go up. 2 completely different styles. Same again. Watch the difference. Everett never losing her player. She is on Jade here. She's on the side. She's on front. Annoying but winning ball, and that's why she's so effective. She's not just a hassler. Look at the difference of Fumi sitting off. She lets that ball go over, but she's always watching, and this is where she's effective. Her explosive range, and who there to pick the ball up? Everett. Again, Zara Everett tracking the difference. Fumi slightly off a little bit more, even on a 5-foot mark, not a 3-foot. Watch this again when Fumi goes in. She relies on her range and her step and explosion to go back for that ball. you've got two players here that are completely complementing each other, because the work rate that Zara does on that hassle, that constant pressure on somebody, the arms in, the deflections, the big range, allows Fumi to then sit off a little bit. She can then sit off her player and hunt a little bit more. She's just watching, reading the game, can step to things and play back and use her explosiveness to win ball. And that is why these two are being so effective, not only through the court, but in the circle.
It must be that time of the week where I also ask the England question then. Given all you've just said about the players that are around her, setting up, allowing her to do what she wants to do, does she work in the current England setup?
And that is the question, isn't it? I would take Fumi purely for a 15-minute impact, because I don't think anybody's looking at her overseas. I think she will go on and win you ball when you desperately need it. But can you afford a space where you're taking a player like that? Because at the moment, they wouldn't be reshuffling their whole defensive unit around what Fumi can do. And she is a liability in terms of how loose she is off on a player. So you've got to have everybody else around her doing the job so Fumi can win you ball. And because that's probably not England's target at the moment, that's where there'll be question marks. And also question marks whether she could back up game after game after game at a major competition. Probably not at this stage. However, all that aside, I would still take her for that moment of magic that was going to win me a Commonwealth Games gold.
Guess what? A little task for them up next, Pulse. The small matter of Loughborough Lightning heading into the Copper Box in round 11. If there is something or someone you want Tamsin to analyse, use the hashtag off the court. Next up for us, on and off the court with Surrey Storm player coach Mikki Austin. This is Off the Court here on the Vitality Netball Superleague channel. Give us a like, drop us a message. Love to hear from you. In a moment, we'll be joined by Mikki Austin, player coach at Surrey Storm, director of netball, does a bit of everything. They beat Dragons then, Tamsin, by a goal. We've had 3 cracking games, actually, even though we saw those matches postponed. And you want to focus on what Proscovia Peace gives them. And I think everyone's having to focus on that, right?
Well, yeah, she's leading in the shooting circle at the moment, top goal scorer in the league. And one of the probably negatives we talked about last season were Storm in that attack end and that finishing off, having that target. What has Peace brought them? Well, she's brought them the get out of jail free card, and it's what every mid-quarter needs. We saw it last season with Donnell Wallam. When you've got nothing else on, you're going to lob the ball in. And there's nothing wrong with that at all, because it just shows how good, how dominant, how effective these shooters are under the post. And that's exactly what Peace has brought. And that's why you're seeing Storm there and thereabouts this season. They're not quite where they want to be. They've got to do some tweaks in other places. But I tell you what, she has made immediate impact into that squad. We're just going to have a look at this. This is against Wasp, taking this ball through the court. And this quick offload from Mikki Austin, who I think is actually feeding Peace the best at the moment. Just the fact that they're not panicking. You're going to watch Frankie Wells come around the front and take this shot on. And I think Frankie Wells' induction in terms of how much percentage she's putting up has made a big difference. What I'm liking with Storm is they talk about the get out of jail, but they're prepared to play the ball around. Watch this from Frankie Wells again. They look at Peace, she comes out, doesn't offload it, goes back, resets the ball, again pulls it off, waits for feet off exit, and then enters. And Peace just the control under the post and the casual offload. That comes with just years of experience. This final one here, you're going to see a real quick feed in from Mikki Austin. This is what I'm talking about. You don't even have to stop. It can just go in. And look, all eyes for the backspace ball. And when you have both those options, a goal attack in the front, a shooter that will play to post, you become very, very difficult to take ball off, because there's always a get out. I've been so impressed with Peace, not only with her dominance in the circle, but also sort of the composure and the chill she's brought to that attack end. When at times we've watched Storm be quite frantic, I think she's been that person that's just got them over the line.
Mikki Austin, welcome along to Off the Court. It's not just because of Proscovia Peace that we've got on, it's the way that you've used her, absolutely used her to the fullest of her abilities. Before Tamsin breaks it down, Talk to me about what she's brought to your squad off the court, what she's meant bringing her in.
Yeah, I think, Peace's netballing history speaks for itself, and anyone who's anyone in the netballing world, when they hear her name, automatically, tie that with one of the top shooters in the world, one of the most prolific in terms of the way that she can take the ball, her strength, all of the rest of it. But, I said from really on, when we sort of broke the news that Peace was going to be joining us in our colours, that separate to what she brings you on a netball court, like, she is just the most phenomenal human being. And anyone who meets her, like, the only way I can describe it is that if you could see her, like, aura, she glows white. Like, she is the most purest soul of anyone you will ever meet. She, has nothing but genuine intentions. She's one of the most unintentionally hilarious people I've ever come across in my entire life. So she's just a phenomenal person to have in and around your group. When she speaks, everybody listens and hangs on her every word, and that's really invaluable in terms of like having a spearhead in that attacking end. But yeah, she's just great value, and I think that we're seeing her flourish in an environment that she's really enjoying herself, in which case in turn we get the best out of her on a netball court, and I think that's kind of what we're seeing at the moment, which is great.
You're so right, she has this angel aura, although unintentionally funny. I thought you knew Tamsin Greenway.
Sorry, T. Sorry.
Tell us why you rate.
I just think she's so dominant as a shooter, but she's so unassuming as well in how she goes about her way. So she constantly delivers for you. She doesn't get riled up in the drama or everything else going on, which is interesting then listening to Mikki describe her as a person, because I think that is so invaluable. You want your shooter to be cool, calm, under pressure and constantly helping you out, and that's what Proscovia Peace does.
Cool, calm, under pressure. That's Casey walking in too, probably for something to nibble on. I talk about the relationship that both of you have, you Tamsin and you Mikki, of course, coaching and playing together. What did you, whilst we've got Tamsin here, what did you learn from Tamsin about that sort of player coach role?
God, I think initially it was just like how admirable it is, one, that anyone is crazy enough to take on both roles, and now I sort of know, I thought I knew back then how stressful it must have been from an outsider looking in, and now it's like, gosh, you really have no idea like how hard it is until you're in it, and how much there is to juggle, and not even just the physical side of it in terms of like, okay, making sure that you're physically prepared alongside the team, and so that you can uphold the standards that you're demanding from everybody else, but just in terms of like the off-court preparation, like trying to manage relationships when you're coming from a situation where you're being friends with people or was friends with people, and now, whether you like it or not, I'm not that side of the fence. Now I'm the gaffer, I'm your boss. So and I have to constantly try and separate myself from that, because when hard decisions need to be made, I absolutely have to make them. And I think, T was always such a formidable leader in terms of how she just made the right decisions at the right time for the good of the team, whether you thought you could see it at that time or not, and we always came out on top, and overall it was just about a team first mentality. So that was something that T, instilled in me as an athlete really early on. And second to that, like, I think she's one of the most amazing technical coaches this country has, personally, from someone who's been under her and been coached by T. So it was just sort of how much knowledge can I pick up from a technical side of things, and then just how to learn that man management side, which I think is such an underrated skill as a coach, which doesn't really get spoken about, but probably counts for 90% of everything that you do.
In terms of that sort of player management, I think it's the bit that's the most underrated. But I want to just pick up on Storm now with where you're at and what you're doing, because having Proscovia Peace in there, you obviously developing as a coach every single season. This is a team that could make top four, that are pushing for top four. But I want to just talk about results. We didn't see the game last night, but it was a real close one with Celtic Dragons, goal for goal. But and you do that, and obviously you've had the loss to 7 Stars, but then you've got scalps against Bath and against Mavericks. So what is going to be the difference? What is that consistency, and how do you bring that to your squad?
Yeah, I think for us, look, first and foremost, obviously we're super pleased with how we're tracking along currently. We're aware that we've picked up some pretty good results in the first half of the season, but our feet are firmly on the floor, and we absolutely know that there's a lot of stuff that can happen in 10 rounds. And I think for me, I'm just really impressed to see the mental shift in the team. Words like mental resilience, mental toughness, being able to deal with pressure, goal for goal games are not something over the last 5 years you probably would have put in the same sentence as this Storm franchise. And I think to change that narrative in one season is really good for us. And don't get me wrong, we had a really clear recruitment strategy in the off season, and I think we executed that really well. But it's one thing to recruit well, it's another thing to make sure that the team have those connections and have that level of trust in each other in half a season to be able to go and execute. So I think for me, it's just making sure that the girls are constantly aware of what they're good at and playing to that strength. We know on our day that irrespective of the opposition, where they're sitting in the table, we still have the monkey on our back, that people think that we're the team that if they, make us feel uncomfortable enough, we will fold, because that's what history has told them we will do. So I completely understand that. So I think for us, it's just about making sure we have that level of confidence in each other, have that level of belief. We prepare insanely well for every opposition that we come up against, so that we can go into that match, player for player, person for person, knowing what I need to do to overcome you as an individual, and then that's going to help our unit and what we need to achieve, and etc., etc. But yeah, there's still a long way to go. As you say, we've picked up some really good results off of teams that were massively above us in the table, and I think we enjoy that. We relish the challenge of playing against teams that are higher than us, and I think we up our standards when it comes to that. So now the latter half of the season, it will be about, okay, well, teams that are in and around us in the table, teams that we need to pick up 3 points off of because of where we're currently situated or recent form, we must make sure that we adhere to those same level of standards. Because notoriously, and I get why, over the past 5 years, we haven't done insanely well when the expectation is on us to succeed.
When does that change, Tamsin? When does that point and that shift come, when players suddenly realise, right, this is winnable, this is doable? And how do you as a coach make that happen? And secondly, you can address this then to Mikki after if you want to. Do you buy that? Do you think this Storms team, this is how other teams view them now?
I think first answer to your first question, it's a natural progression. You can tell people all you want, you can blag it all you want. And I've been in positions with that in the early days of Storm, but it happens with the results on the court. And it becomes a bit of a trust thing with your player coach as well. You become believable. In my first year of player coach, no one wanted to come play for me. No one did. And that you build that element, and you build that squad, and you build the style and the culture you want to play. It takes time. Success does. It's not an easy thing. So that isn't something easily that just switches one day. It's over time, it builds, and this season, regardless of what happens to Storm, will be invaluable in their building over the next, especially if they can keep that group together. Do I buy that a team to beat, that people see it as that? Probably, because I've also been there. I've been there as a coach that looks at other teams and go, if you want to win the league, Storm, you need to beat them. It's just not even a discussion. But it doesn't mean for them that they're not dangerous. So actually, you can play that very much into your own hands. When people are coming at you thinking you're a team for a scalp, it not only pushes you to new standards, it also gives you an opportunity to beat a team that perhaps don't come firing all cylinders at you as well. That works both ways. So I don't ever think it's a problem. Sometimes it's easier to be in that underdog, ticking along kind of team that actually you're going to come and play like that against you. We are going to beat you. We're going to punish you. You're not only going to help us this year, but you're going to help us build to the future as well.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, we know what we can do when we play well. We know that we, on our day, against anyone, if we execute well, if we put on untold amounts of defensive pressure like we know we can, and if we feed peace and create opportunities for her to be the threat as a world-class shooter like we know she is, on our day, we'll rival anyone. And I think we've shown that probably this year, going goal for Thunder until half-time, three-quarter time. We came back from a double-digit goal deficit to Loughborough and ended up only losing the game by 4 or 5. So, and these are teams that at the minute look pretty unbeatable, or at least until this week where they went head-for-head against each other. So, we have that level of belief. It's just about whether we execute or not. And as we know, in a game that's small margins as we're seeing across the league now, irrespective of table position. It just comes down to decision making in maybe 3 or 4 key moments across that 60 minutes. If you can choose to execute and push on from there, then you'll be fine. If you don't, then it's going to go edgy. But I think the difference is now, like, we actually believe it. Tia alluded to it a second ago. You know, you can talk about trigger words like confidence and belief and all of that kind of stuff as much as you like. And I'm certain every environment does. Of course they do, because no one's in this league thinking they can't compete. But sooner or later, you have to start getting the results in order for people to actually believe that's a thing, you know, to actually think that they have a shot and they actually convince themselves that, yeah, do you know what, I actually can do this and I can be as good as that player and I can beat this defender. And, you know, all of a sudden you get a couple of results and now it's a given. You know, there's of course it is. It's just an expectation now. And I think that's probably the change that we've seen this year, which is great. But, you know, as I say, we've still got a ways to go. I still think we've got a lot of learnings to do. And, you know, games like last night where we have to go goal for goal away from home on a Monday night is really tough going. And, you know, we learned some really tough things about each other in that moment, and to come out with it with a 1-goal win, I think we'll take and run away with. But yeah, you know, all good things. And I think that, you know, one thing that I think anyone at Storm will tell you at the minute is they're just enjoying themselves. Like, win, lose or draw, we accept that results will sometimes go our way, sometimes won't, and it hurts and it stings and all of the rest of it. But we're just really enjoying that process of, okay, well, how can we be slightly better here? And what is it that broke down in that instance so that we can fix it for next time? The girls seem to really be relishing that challenge, but I think that's probably a testament to the amount of depth that we have across our training environment at the moment, because it is super competitive.
It's a testament to you too, Coach. Take it. Mikki, thank you so much. Off the court. Storm Stars in round 11. I hope it's not goal for goal. At least for one of you sides. Clearly, I'm a neutral. Thank you, Mikki.
Yeah, you and me both.
Let's have a look at what else is on the cards for round 11. Love the look of loads of these fixtures this weekend. More teams backing up as well. Pulse Lightning. That is going to be a real threatener for Lightning, I think, after what they've come off the back. How do they respond? And then they've got to go to Rhinos as well. They've got Rhinos on Monday. Mavericks Wasps will have across Sky. Rhinos, I mention them because we've had loads of people get in touch with you asking about what's the difference between Rhinos of this season to last season's vintage. We know last season was all new, fresh. They managed to get in right at the last minute to that top 4. This season, what have you seen? Positive, negatives, and a change in Rhinos?
Yeah, look, let's not take anything for granted. They've had a very disruptive season so far. They've lost Emily Hollingworth to an ACL. Nofi Tona came back this year. They lost Danelle Wallum, huge. And they've had injuries to players like Rhea Dixon, Vicky Osola's been out. They've been disruptive, but they are inconsistent. They've won 5, lost 4. They have the worst goal difference in the top 8, which just shows that lack of ability in both attack and defence at crucial times. And even though they got a scout with Mavericks, they've lost they've had real close games with teams like Stars and Wasps, even though they got over the line. So they're just not the team we saw last season. Big one for me, Danelle going overseas. Do not underestimate how effective she was for this team, how dominant she was in that circle, and what a huge loss that is. For her to go and debut like she did for the Firebirds just shows the level of ability of that athlete. Secondly, defensively, they're a physical one-on-one unit, and they're known for that. And so teams have worked them out this year. They love to run so hard on your shoulder. But actually what happens is teams start cutting and stopping on you and popping ball over the top, and actually losing players like Fitona is big when you play that style of netball. And then the attack for me, they've got such a heavy Aussie influence with Dan Ryan from last year and now with Tracy Robinson. They almost play too quick at times. There are times to add that subtlety in, and I think sometimes that's their worst enemy. So pick 3 clips that kind of highlight this. This is from the London Pulse game, which people thought would be closer. Watch the defensive pressure. They want to go so hard. So Jay Clark tracking there, but look at Lydia Walker totally exposed. Both defenders going front and losing. Pulse throwing that ball away. That wasn't good defensive pressure, and that's where they're open. Look at this down the attack end. This quick 1-2 play between Jay Clark and Brie Grierson, they never even look down the court, and they're the kind of unforced errors we're talking about. Lucky to get away with it. And the same thing here. Look at this from Lydia Walker. She doesn't land it but flicks it off. They get away with it. But there are just times for me when they can just settle on the ball. Look at this one from Amelia Hall. She tries to throw it on the run. So lucky to get away with that defensive ball. And they get it back in there. And then this is the big part for me. They went through 3 shooters in this game. So you're going to see Bree Grierson back in that goal attack because no Rhea Dixon. Just not got the same partnership with Amy Clinton yet because hasn't been given time. They lose this rebound and that's kind of game over. You know, Donnell was huge for them, but they brought in good personnel. You had Sienna Rushton there already. You brought in Ziggy Berger. You brought in Amy Clinton, but not to change them every quarter. Like, what would have happened if you just let a player play it out for a few weeks, built some relationships, added that subtlety in, took some pace on the ball, understood that you can't just lob it in there and let those players, those shooters develop. I think they're going through a bit of a transition at the moment. I don't think they'll make top 4. I don't think they'll be anywhere near it at the end of it. They might get a scout, but they're just, for me, not gelling in the right areas at the moment. And I'm not seeing that progression through them as we're now in round 10, 11.
So we're all getting Settle Petal T-shirts made up for Leeds Rhinos then. That is something that you've been chatting a lot about, Settle Petal, a lot on your social media. But I kind of want to have a minute silence for your timeline on particularly on Twitter, because you set it all off. We mentioned it right at the start of the show. Your tweet read, "After watching a lot of Super Netball this weekend, I can't help thinking that the Super Shot in tonight's game would have just given it a little bit extra something. Thoughts, ballers?" This was in relation to Lightning's defeat to Manchester Thunder. Right, before you explain yourself, Mel says, no, wasn't exactly a boring game, was it? Doesn't need the Super Shot. Lee, Fast 5 is sort of a setup for that. Should be great, but just ends up with long bombs all game, and it gets a bit dull, says Lee. However, Super Shot, all about the way it's set up. Jill says, "I'm scared to say this on the netball Twitter sphere, but I agree. 2 esteemed netball journos, though. Take this in before you respond. Jenny Sinclair, when your team's worked hard all match to craft a lead and it's blown apart by a shooter with a hot hand, no thanks," says Jenny. And Erin, "Don't forget the absolute thrill of rush shot air balls, saw in round 1. A shooter under the post missing, getting a rebound undefended, saw in round 1. Turnovers from sides trying to get shooters into position, saw in round 1. And of course the drama of extra baseline throw-ins, saw in round 1. She's referring to what's happened in Australia in round 1 with the Super Shot. Explain yourself, Tamsin Greenway.
Right, well, firstly, it's a bit of a highlight in our household because Casey Jacks, bless him, my 2-year-old, had to watch 4 Australian netball games this weekend, and every time the siren goes, he thinks it's a choo-choo. So that's the ultimate excitement in our house when we know it's a Super Shot going on. But on a serious note, I just don't think it's as gimmicky. I get people's objections, but I will question the errors and what they're sort of seeing. And also, you know, we're saying... like what happens when your team gets the lead? Your team's not playing for 10 minutes. They're playing for 15. So the Super Shot is in the game now. So it's part of your tactical awareness, your tactical plan, your ability to put players on there. They're not just ruining the game. It's the rules. So I just think we are... we want a lot as netballers. We want a professional game. We want every game shown on TV. We want full crowds. We want pure entertainment. We want everybody to love the game like we love the game, right? So I'm just putting it out there that little tweaks here and there don't necessarily ruin the game. And honestly, the last night game was not boring against Loughborough Lightning and Manchester Thunder. It was great. However, at no point did I get that ultimate excitement. And if you want any more kind of agreement with me, go and watch Donnell Wallum for the Firebirds against who are they playing? Vixens, right, in the last couple of minutes when she nailed that Super Shot and turned to the crowd and let out the biggest roar. We didn't hear a roar like that, maybe at Celtic Dragons, sorry Storm, all weekend. And that's all I'm saying. That's what I watch sport for. The excitement, the drama, the umph. And I just think the 2 point gives you an umph. Did I sell it?
It was worth it just for the sound effects. Yeah, just for the sound effects, it was worth it alone. You're right to reply now. As always, welcome. Use the hashtag #OffTheCourt. Let those fixtures sink in then. Is there one you want to highlight heading into the weekend?
Pulse Lightning, obviously.
Yeah, who knows what we're going to get from that one, which is why we love the Vitality Netball Superleague. Expect the unexpected. Pretty much the same from us too. Thank you to everyone that's been part of the show this week. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.